We're here today to practice what I call yoga of radiant presence. This is the intelligent direct with reality, with absolute reality, with the totality of being, which is right here, right now, which is what you are, which is what this is inalienably. Reality can't be lost. There's nothing but it can be misunderstood. And this is the problem, if any, that yoga is intending to correct. To come to it through direct perception, through direct experience and direct engagement, inherent intelligence, recognize and how it is what it is, validates all the erroneous ways are apparently greatly engaged in misunderstanding and holding it to exist in ways that it doesn't. For example, exist. You are the totality of reality. It occurs within you and is you. You exist beyond space. You exist beyond time. And you are completely independent of apparent circumstances. Now, all this is not theoretical. This is the fact, and it is directly discoverable, directly perceivable, self-verifyingly through investigating what this is, investigating what you are, what is here, which of course invalidates all the horrible misconceptions, which would be grotesque if they were true. For an individual who's going to die, and you're dependent upon the world, and you're dependent upon this grotesque situation we find ourselves embedded in, the precariousness of our of modern civilization, and so on and so forth, disease and failure, so on and so forth. None of that exists in the way that people typically think it exists. It exists, circumstances in the dream exist. It appears as apparent information and can be interpreted as being that it may be interpreted as being, but it never is that. It never becomes that. It never comes into being. It never goes out of being. It has no substance. It has no final form. It is you dancing with your own energy. Now, this is all literally true. This is not theory or philosophy. All, mechanical fact of what is here, of what exists. Now, what all of this is simply what you may be used to calling your experience. Experience is reality. Experience is actuality. And there's nothing but experience. Anything that you've ever thought existed, you've come to think that because it seems to appear within your experience. Experience is the touchstone of all reality. You need to jump start a little bit here. Calling it yoga makes it sound dignified and pretentious, and that it's a particular kind of thing that you maybe learn or study, or it's some great achievement to be engaged in it. But in actuality, all of life is yoga. All of reality is yoga. You've never practiced anything else than yoga. Yoga is engaging with itself, or you could say consciousness engaging with form. And as consciousness engages with form, it explores, it learns, it dances with it. Now, typically, it learns very inefficiently, one might argue. The practice of yoga proper is by employing intelligence, learning to engage with it much more efficiently, which penetrates much more seemingly rapidly into the revelation of what this is. So yoga is not new. Yoga is just life. Yoga is just experience. Yoga is just being. Yoga is just you here, breathing, and all the usual stuff that always happens. Coming to see and coming to recognize what it actually is possible, doable, and is the goal of and the practice of yoga. The essence of, in practical terms, the essence of practice of yoga is noticing the ways in which your actual experience deviates from you're used to thinking that it is. Everything that you've actually experienced, anything that you've actually experienced, vastly beyond and vastly different. When I say vastly, I should say infinitely, absolutely beyond and absolutely different than anything you can think it is. So we're used to thinking like, oh, I'm looking at a chair. What is the actuality that is occurring that I'm calling looking at a chair? It's an amazing presence. Analyze it conceptually into, oh, it's a presence of color and form and luminosity and brightness and so on and so forth. But if I look at all of that and any of that, as to exactly what that is. Not theoretically or conceptually. Actually, it is looking at open-endedness and experience. And it's not a chair, it's experience of a chair. Or, the of a chair is, of course, the argument, which is untrue. And experience itself is dynamic, continually slippery, continually morphing. So you never have the precisely same experience. So it becomes different in the instant, and different in the instance eternally. So to try and find a stable chair that's actually sitting there, that's not changing, and yet the concept materially is, oh yeah, there's a chair and it's just sitting there. It seems to be changing because my eyes are drifting, or my thought, I'm moving my head or whatever. That argument is an abstraction based on reality of perception, and nothing can be found but perception. The chair is just an argument. It's an abstraction of the perception. The perception is, and perception is mysterious. It appears, it arises. You might call consciousness, which is completely mysterious, which is just here. And consciousness can't be found. The apparition of all these forms and energies and seeming qualities can't be found, and yet pinned down or ultimately resolved as to precisely what they are, explicit, completely obvious, and completely available for investigation, at which point it becomes completely obvious that they are the way they are, not the way we may be used to thinking of them in terms of these dull, objective, stable realities that are somehow sitting there, out there. So one discovers that the field is everything. Just, again, not theoretically, just here in my experiential field. And that you are you all is just an argument. It's a concept. I don't know if you're here. I mean, in a dream last night, I was, God knows what I was doing, talking to people and doing weird shit. And they were there. They seem to be there, but then I wake up and where'd they go? I leave here and go and walk out the room, and where did you go? Struck by a bolt of lightning for blasphemy, and where do you go? So again, this is immediately obvious, and small children intuit this very directly. If you look at a very young child, 1 year old or something, maybe, I don't know what range, but very small, investigating their experience, investigating the world, they know it's all them. They're taught this fantasy of separation. No, I'm mom, I'm over here, you're over there, you're little junior, and we're separate. And it's just this soup of luscious weirdness that permeates the baby's infinite experiential field. But eventually, the brainwashing begins to take hold. So yoga aims to rectify this problem of all erroneous brainwashing that we've been steeped in. The brainwashing was never true. Erroneous ideas have never been accurate, believable. And there's continual reinforcement because there seem to be all these other people who seem to be very adamantly believing the same things and hammering at you with the structure of the language and things they're talking about this and that and going here and doing that and being up at this time. No space. So how can we meet at 11 o'clock, So it's it may seemingly be an uphill battle at first because of the way in which human tribal social organization is steeped in this self-reinforcing of consensus reality. Exists in one's imagination, if it does. Experience continually and obviously deviates from all of this, all this bullshit that that normal people think is happening. And yoga is the process of coming to discover that, coming to see that clearly. It's the misinterpretation, thus revealing what it really is, just revealing what I call radiant presence, which is all that there is. There's only this one condition here. It's here right now. It's what everything is. It's what you are. It's what this conversation is. It's what the time that's passing is. It's what the space is. All this is appearing in is. So coming to recognize that is yoga. I wish I was organized enough to have a mental checklist and I can say, oh, I covered that. So the way it can be seen, it's not literally true, but is a kind of a template. If you live in two worlds simultaneously, one world is the world of actuality, where you actually know what you actually are, and the other is the world of these conceptual templates, these interpretive frameworks, imagination, and juxtaposed over, so that the consciousness sees direct experience through these templates, and then heavy-handedly interprets all of the information present in terms of these templates, in terms of these maps, these narrations, these descriptions. Oh, we're in San Rafael, we're at a spiritual talk, it's Saturday morning at such and such o'clock, it's blah, 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 blah. All of that information is held in imagination. And it doesn't actually exist. It's not really true. But the imagination, is powerfully over the actuality, which is this. The actuality cannot be said. You can say something about you've entered fantasy, you've entered delusion. The most one can say is this, or silence is maybe better. But it doesn't matter, because you can sit here and spout gibberish all day, and this is still this. You can't violate it. You can't. It is untouchable. It cannot be sullied. It cannot. Apparently, people, even though they live in this sort of dual world of actual experience and these imaginary interpretive overlays, you're aware of it. They think it's all one thing. They think, this is a chair, this is San Rafael, you are people, we are having a talk. And so, and the overlay sort of gets smeared and blurred into a sort of a mishmash of your life, of the world, of what's going on. So another way of seeing the essential task of yoga is to notice the difference between these interpretive frameworks, which are continually appearing, and actual experience. Now, interpretive frameworks, the point is not to negate them or stop interpreting. That doesn't matter at all. And besides, it's not going to happen. The mind is very powerful, and it's expert at churning out this crap. But if you come to see that these things coexist and they essentially have nothing to do with each other, then you will be able to investigate, to look into direct experience without being hampered by the preconceptions that are implied by. So you just notice that there's two different things going on here. There's the mind's version, there's the mind's narrative of everything you could say or think about this, which is, of course, the evidence upon which, supposedly, arguably, the interpretation rests, but it doesn't really, because it doesn't really apply. Wrong. It's inaccurate. It's incomplete. It does not capture or indicate accurately what is here. And the problem is, it's inaccurate in a way that is largely censorship. It doesn't misinterpret actuality by hand. On the contrary, it whittles away and makes it small, diminishes it. This is inconceivably magnificent. It is literally infinite, all-powerful. It is literally beyond space and time. You are it. All things are it. It is pure energy. It is pure light. It is pure bliss and joy, you could say. I mean, those aren't literally true because, again, obviously they're concepts, so they don't capture it, but they're evocative and to indicate vaguely this is. But then these interpretive frameworks come and censor that and whittle it down to little, whittle off bits. Well, let's chop off the infinity part, because who needs that? That's just confusing as hell. Let's chop off the you are everything part, because, how are you going to know who to call? And so it whittles down this incredible actuality that is right here to sort of these bite-sized morsels that are, oh, this is a chair, this is a rug, the rug's kind of, and this is all these gaudy paintings on the wall. This is a spiritual talk, this is San Rafael, blah, blah. The narrative, the version of it, and then there you are in your crappy life. You are not in your crappy life. You are in transcendental inconceivability, literally, mechanically. That is the case. Preventing one from enjoying that fact is not recognizing it through now, to reiterate, the point is not to stop interpreting. The point is not to suppress interpretation. The point is to notice that interpretation is fantasy. It's a version. It's a caricature. It's a version of what is here, but it's a very paltry version of what is here that nobody captures it. It's like you go see a movie. What was the movie? Oh, well, this guy had met this girl, and they kind of got together. Captures the movie. Now I know everything that happened. I know just what it looks like. I know just what it felt like. Analogous to what these interpretive frameworks do. There's just inconceivable richness that you could not, in every instant, just right now, it's a literal infinity of richness. How could you possibly capture that in a few words, in a lot of words even? In a whole encyclopedia. It's still, it's pathetic. So just coming to see that, at this point, yoga can become a little confusing. However, that you kind of exist in two worlds, and the two worlds don't really have much to do with each other. But you can't really stop. You can't really go from one to the other. It can be kind of strange because it's a little schizophrenic. You're still you, and you're still in your struggling through your life, and at the same time, it's just inconceivable that immersed in swimming, and these things happen concurrently, and it can be dizzying. It's disorienting. But as the yogi continues to develop their assimilation of the actual condition, disparity becomes less and less relevant as the interpretations are discovered to be small events in the face of this inconceivably vast event of the actuality. And then a realization consists of that sole fact. Not just seeing it completely, but it's just completely obvious. One knows it. It's like, well, yeah, there's all of these different dimensions, and a small aspect of the dimensions are the mind spinning off this crap, and other dimensions of sense fields, and other dimensions of subtle vibrations, and you can't say. It dimensions all the way down, an infinity of dimensions now, and this is it. You are this, and it's all open. It is all explicitly, clearly, and self-verifyingly what you are. And this is the goal of yoga, and the path of yoga is simply engaging in in whatever way you are able at any given time. So in the beginning, yoga can look like a struggle. It can look like really trying to see outside of the interpretations. It can seem like a real uphill battle. And then in the middle phase, it can be very dizzying and confusing. Like I say, where you're sort of living in two worlds and what the fuck, you're just, what do I do with this? How do I handle it? How do I, because life goes on. I mean, you got to pay the bills and all this stuff, supposedly. They say. Gotta go, vote for Trump and all the other important things in your day. And yet, at the same time, what it really is, but then you could say the center of gravity continues to shift, metaphorically. And when it comes to see, no, this can look a little bit like that, it can look a little bit like that, it can look a little bit like that. But it never departs from itself. It never becomes anything other than this that it is. And so all of these versions of it, all these variations of it that it continually spins off and implies infinitely, its light show are just all of this apparent versions and information is what I call radiance. This actuality. And that's all there is. There is this that is, and then there's all of this, seeming implication. And the implication never becomes anything. And none of it can actually be found or pinned down. And it's completely blatantly obvious. And here you are. That's pretty complete. Did I leave out anything, Charlie? Me neither. So why don't we, if you have any questions about any of that, please feel free to bring it up and we can look into it. See if we can make sense of this completely gibberish, nonsensical infinity.
Are there stages or phases of growth? What do the beginning stages look like?
There can seem to be stages and phases, but there aren't really. It's rather like symptoms. Like, for example, if you imagine a spaceship taking off from Earth, flying to the center of the galaxy, first you're in the atmosphere, and then you're in outer space, and then you're flying by the moon, and then you're whatever, but and then you're going to the radiation belts. I mean, God knows what. So there's the scenery, the sort of texture going on can appear seemingly as one develops in sensitivity and awareness. A lot of generalization can be said about this, but it's always unique, so it's not really too important. So there aren't actually stages, but they can look like there are.
What would the early stages look like?
Well, it looks however it looks. I mean, typically, early on, one might seem to be in one's life, and hey, there's this weird spirituality stuff that maybe I have a feeling there's something to it. What's up with that? And so then there's sort of a looking into that. What is this? Where can I find this? What is this? And then maybe there's flashes of inspiration or revelation or whatever. It's unique to the individual what it seems to be like. Then that seems to be, oh wow, this is incredible. There's something there, and then probably it drifts away, and you're back in your life, and like, what was that? What was that? And the cycle will tend to repeat itself, and so on. But it's not an actual repetition of a cycle. It's more like a spiral. Continually opens and develops and becomes more and more subtle in its subtlety of its engagement with what things look like. And And it's always basically the same events. The entire path of yoga is basically the same. But what it seems to be is becomes very, very different. Circumstances change so much as because the sensitivity of the yogi develops, and as the sensitivity develops, it is understood to be vastly different. It's not too important where you think you are. There's always path of yoga, the engagement of yoga practice is always exactly the same. You know, be intelligently, experience, and let it show you what it is. And one discovers what that means and how to do it by doing it. And at first it may look like you're failing to do it. Failing to do it is a misunderstanding. Any engagement, so you actually can't do it wrong. And it shows you how to do it. You learn how to do it by doing it. With that, with most activities, you learn how to ride a bicycle by falling down a lot, and then one day all of a sudden you can ride a bicycle, and then eventually you don't even think about it.
Okay, I would like to know more about the word transplanted.
I'm not sure.
Transcendent?
Transcendent?
Oh yes, I mean it transcend means to be beyond, and this is beyond any particular way. In other words, any quality you can find, but this is beyond that. It's more than that. A good way to put it is there's an absolute quality more than anything and different than anything. So anything you find, I find the color. Oh, great, there's color. There's color in my field of vision. Fabulous. But color is more than color, and color is different than color simultaneously. And one discovers that and another through looking at, well, I'm thinking this is color. Let me see what is it really? And then I look and I can't say what it is. It's very strange. It's more than simply being color as I thought it was, and so on. So it continually transcends itself. And this transcendence is absolute. Final version of what's here. It's literally infinite. You can never now I've got to the limit. Now I've got the whole thing. This is it. Bang, I've arrived. No, it's more than that. And it's different than that. And more and different than itself is what it is. Reality is very, very strange. It is what it is that which is other than itself without departing from itself. Yeah.
Between the teacher and student, for example, this conversation, there is a part behind that transcending.
Yeah.
That means it's not only the word, you are pointing to something that reality is.
Yes, of course. Because the words are there and the meaning is there, but also there's much more than just words happening. We are. I am an energy apparition within your experience, more than words, and likewise you with me. Engagement is mutually transformative. It has, let's say, transformative is too heavy-handed. It has impact.
And this quality can be in two or other people. If it's
Always.
Teacher being is bigger, and
there's always any your relationship with anything is yoga. Your relationship with anything is transformative. So you reach and you pick up a drink and you have a sip. You know, if I drank something else, it would be a different kind of change. You know, you talk to the person next to you, and it's a certain quality. You talk to someone else, and there's a certain different quality. You talk to me, there's a certain different quality. So everything has this exact same sort of seeming flow.
Talking about the yoga, this transcendence is the idea to remove the ignorance in me. And we are talking about that. This
not to remove it, to see what it is. Can't be removed.
Ignorance cannot be
well, it depends. No, it depends on what you mean by ignorance. This is a very fine point. Misinterpretation is inherent in reality. Reality misinterprets itself. So ignorance is not misinterpretation. Ignorance is thinking that it is supposed to be correct interpretation. Ignorance is thinking this is the way things are, and I either have it or I don't. The truth is, there's no way things are. So you'll hold it as this and hold it as that and hold it as this, and you're always wrong and you're always right. It's off into something else anyway. So what difference does it make? You could say that ignorance is the idea that things are supposed to make sense. Ignorance is the idea that there's supposed to not be ignorance. This actuality continually misses itself. Always. It's always circling itself, dancing with itself. It's always looking for itself and never finding itself, but it never misses itself. Which I know it sounds like poetry, you know. And yet, it can't be said what it is, but it can be known. You can see this. And yoga is the process of coming to see this clearly and self-verifyingly.
You are claiming the perception is fluidity, always changing.
Yes. My claim, you look at your own experience. You never experience the same thing twice. You know, what you're experiencing right now, every single bit of it you've never experienced before, and it's already gone. I mean, maybe in very, very subtle ways, but very, very subtle is all there is. So it's comprehensive. It's absolute.
It still also exists a moment of understanding.
Yes.
That jump, you got it.
Sure.
Something happened in perception.
Moments of revelation where you've got it. True and false. You see something, you've seen something. You know, realization is when you see that there's nothing to see. These you know, constant barrage, all these things coming and going. Oh, I see this. Oh, I see that. Oh, I'm hungry for lunch. Oh, you know, I got to do a talk. Oh, look what's on TV. And so there's this constant barrage of revelations, and it turtles all the way down. They don't go anywhere. They don't lead to anything. There's no finality, and that is the solving of ignorance. There is no end. There is no beginning. There's nothing but mystery. And thinking that there's an end and a beginning and something defined and a starting point and a finish point and a way to do things, that's ignorance. And yet what ignorance consists of is actually the absolute condition. This ignorance of missing the point is what the absolute does continually. The absolute is continually missing itself. It's playing hide and seek with itself, and it never wins. But it always wins because it never finds anything but itself. You know, I mean, it sounds like gibberish, but it's as true as can be said. All right. But in general, you don't need to about that too much until it becomes relevant. Seems to be anyway, that's fine. That right there is a starting point for seeing that it's more than that. And then repeat forever. until you don't give a shit anymore, and then you then you can claim that you realized and hang on a shingle. Or just go hang out at the local pub and, you know, drink yourself silly. That's cool too.
You mentioned the wow factor, and to somehow as a way in.
Yes.
And so, you know, ordinarily, or quite often anyway, wow factor is something appealing,
Right.
beautiful.
Yes, yes.
Something about it is your attention. Or you could even say it's the quality of the heart is kind of like, oh, I like that.
Right, sure.
And then, and so my question goes along the lines of an ordinary experience without any idea of any yoga, just normal, fall in love with something, whatever it is, and get involved with it and appreciate it and enjoyment out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't lead necessarily any further. So is there some mistake as someone goes down the track of attraction and enjoyment, and that is a dead end that somehow another way is to not get into the dead end of that.
Yeah. The wow factor as an indicator in practice of yoga is sort of like a bomb going off, or maybe more likely a firecracker, let's say, where you're with anything and all of a sudden, you know. So it's not simplistically about, you know, a wow, oh, I like this, and you're pursuing lusciousness or pursuing pleasure or pursuing beauty or pursuing that. I mean, and all that's fine. It's not like don't do that. In the course of doing that, at any given moment, all of a sudden, what? You know, there's just a moment of mystery, of I don't know, of just, you know, and then typically it will dissolve and the mind will clamp down on it and resume business as usual. So it's like a hiccup.
So is the track that I was talking about, is it any more likely to what you described as a genuine wow factor as anything random?
No.
It's just as likely one or the other.
Yes.
Okay.
But which means that you're free to pursue pleasure and pursue self-enjoyment. Why not? I mean, enjoy yourself, right? It's not like you have to suffer. Yeah. On the other hand, suffering can be a good way to do it too, you know? So you're free to, it doesn't matter. I mean, a very simple, very powerful, comprehensive rule of thumb is no matter what you do. And it does not matter what you do. For purity, you can be a hedonist, you can, you know, be pissed off and blow up government institutions. You know, you can rob banks. It just doesn't matter. Whether you do those things or not has absolutely nothing to do. It's seeing what it is that matters, what it looks like is happening or you're doing.
You know, sometimes when I'm relatively new to reading your material, this is only the second satsang I've been to, but because it's so much, you know, the yoga of radiant presence, I think maybe for other people too, for me, where I've had that experience is, you know, chemically induced, like
Sure.
say an ayahuasca
That's
or
fine.
something. Does that have any benefit of any kind whatsoever?
Well, yes, but not. It's the wow factor that's the benefit, not the context that it seems to happen in.
Mhm.
The problem with mechanical situations like that is, you psychedelic and you have it, oh, wow, incredible, this is amazing. And then you lose it and you go back and here I am in my normal life again. So I have to take it again and I'll take it again. Wow, this is amazing. And you're just, you're the grind of seeking and losing, seeing that you don't have anything, you didn't lose anything. And the wow can happen in loss, it can happen in gain, it can happen in ecstasy, it can happen in depression, it can happen in pain, it can happen in anything whatsoever.
And the transcendence is the moment of, I'm sure it could be stated a lot of different ways, but of not knowing what is this? And just
Yes, yes, just that.
Uh-huh.
Not as a seeing that right here, right now, up close and personal. It's not a spacing out necessarily, kind of. Oh, I don't know. It's like it's right here, and what is it? And typically it comes in a flash, and then you're off, spacing out and doing your stuff like usual. But that's not important. The important thing is to have that engagement, not to try to hold it or retain it.
So getting back to the original angle of what I was saying about action of something that grabs your interest because it's beautiful or whatever, something like that. Is that as good as place to allow and define the wow factor as anything else?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean,
but remember that is beyond that. The wow factor is almost like popping that bubble. The wow factor is like waking up from a dream. You can wake up from any dream. Doesn't matter the dream, but a nice dream is a fine thing to wake up from.
I guess one of the things that occurs to me about if you're pursuing something that has some attraction, momentum to keep going with it. Whereas if it's just, normal, you're walking down the street or whatever, has enough momentum to stay with it long enough to have it.
That's a fallacy.
That's a fallacy?
Yeah. It's not about staying with in any sense.
No.
So if you're doing that, like say my personality, I tend to be kind of an obsessive person. I have some things in my life that I just really like, and I'm just like, bang, I'm just, I'm a maniac. I get into this stuff and I'm just, off and running. But that's not really that. That's this. And if I'm not engaged in one of my manias and I'm just, hanging out bored or something, that's not really that, that's this. Anything is the opportunity for seeing that bubble pop.
Okay. So there is no particular advantage to following
No.
In the way that I was. Okay.
The one, like I said, it's an overriding rule of thumb. It doesn't matter what you do in the strongest possible terms. So pursuing and following, great. You don't, great. It doesn't matter. So then you're free. So what you do, perspective of the practice of yoga is about seeing, and seeing happens anytime, just bang, like this lightning striking. And it can happen in any context. It's not dependent on context. And at first, you may discover, oh, I was doing such and such, and I had this amazing revelation. So you go try and chase it, and you do it again, and it doesn't happen or whatever. And it's like, oh, what? You killed it. Trapped lightning in a bottle.
Well, I had this kind of odd experience the first time that I talked. The next day, I don't live here, and but I was driving around a little bit, and I used to live here, so I was doing kind of memory lane, driving down this street and that street, I lived here 30 some years ago, or whatever. And I was kind of just allowing myself to do this nostalgic thing. Found myself falling into, oh, that was a younger self. Oh, that was older now than that. And holy
Tell
shit.
me about it.
And it was just like, man, I'm really old and getting older. And all of a sudden I was in this very deep mood of, I'm dying. I mean, it sounds ridiculous.
It sounds
very
I'm
funny
sure most
to
of us looking around the room at the demographic, most of us are kind of flew with that a little bit.
But it was not a place I'd ever been in my psychology in that particular way.
Yeah.
Not that I hadn't thought about those things before, but it was like really had a vortex quality of like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I started driving. I live in Nevada, and so I have a long drive ahead of me. And oh, this is probably a good thing. I was trying to convince myself, probably the result of that talk that I went to. This is probably some follow-on effect of that in some kind of way. I couldn't quite convince myself I liked it, and I kind of wanted it to go away, which it did after a few hours of engaged in other stuff. But it was just an odd state of mind that really grabbed me, and I don't know, I just didn't know what to make of it. Yeah.
Well, anything can happen. Generally, newness, new states of mind are so when you see like if you really feel old in a way you've never felt before, you're seeing it sort of freshly or more deeply. Oh my God, I really am old. I mean, right there, bang, you've lost your normalcy. Your reality bubble has popped. A new bubble. It may seem to be the variation of the old bubble, but still in all, it's a new bubble.
Yeah.
And so right there in that transition of, wow, what is normal? What is real?
Yeah. So I'd like to pursue this a little bit more with you, because it wasn't a conceptual thing, because obviously it had all these before, but it was a mood. It was a deeper feeling, like you said, a different bubble, shifting to a different bubble. And it's like, wow, what is this? And it really captured my attention. It's like, what the hell is this? And, just exploring that, be maybe in the direction of kind of what you're suggesting.
Well,
little bit, maybe.
Maybe yes, maybe no, but not to make too much of a thing about it, because it's nothing as important in itself. It's just it's like a sign pointer or something. Oh, in that shift, in any kind of shift, it's like a shift. What's up with that? Because anything that disrupts the normal frame of reference that seems to be sort of just locked in and more or less ongoing is an opportunity of noticing, wow, things are a little different than
that. It was that. And I was just trying to get a sense of whether that was, for me, a pointer, a personal pointer of like, is that the kind of thing?
Well, don't worry about too much.
Okay.
Don't worry, just play with it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Okay.
Best to approach all this stuff very sort of lightly and playfully. And well, maybe I got it, or maybe it's all bullshit. When I'm this yoga of what the fuck, what am I doing here? I mean, and in that frame of mind, it actually kind of loosens you up, more loose with it, and looseness. This, if anything, if this is anything, it's looseness. If this is anything, it's slippery.
Are you saying that there is totally separate from experience, like there's no, just before I saw an Indian restaurant, I have a memory of seeing an Indian restaurant half an hour ago, on 4th Street. That exists, and the same level of lack of reality as something like saying something political on YouTube could just be an actor pretending, that it has no
Yes.
political or social reality.
Yes, I'm saying that.
So how can you navigate in life?
how have you ever navigated in life?
Kind of like the search for happiness.
but so you've been searching for happiness. You can continue to search for happiness. How do you do it?
Very well.
But that's him. I'm saying, how do you do it?
I take the least undesirable option at every moment.
Sure. So you're experiencing yourself as taking options. So that's interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Taking options really mean when you're taking an option, what do you do?
It's like a micro choice.
So you're calling it a micro choice, but what actually happens? Why do you choose what you choose
Actually,
instead
what
of something
happens
else?
is the next thing just happens.
That's interesting. So you navigate through life by shit happens. Me too.
There's no way to actually do anything. It's like, there's no way to have any power over anything.
Well, there may or may not be. There may or may not be. Whether or not you do have power is just another game you're playing with yourself. Tons of power. Who knows? You're never gonna find out.
Actual games I can play.
I don't know. You tell me. If you're thinking things are a certain way, that's a game you're playing with yourself. If you're thinking you don't have power, then you're playing. Let's play the game of I don't have any power. I have no power. I'm a victim or whatever.
What if I hit total amnesia? I can't remember where I live. I don't know. Maybe
If you have total amnesia, then you have total amnesia.
Maybe weird, huh?
No, what weird compared to what?
I probably went up at the mental hospital, but that was because those things did.
I mean, weirdness is what we got.
Yeah.
You know, experience moves from weirdness to weirdness, and it never gets any less weird. And believe it or not, it never gets any more weird.
This isn't really a spiritual path.
This isn't really a what?
What you're doing isn't really, it doesn't have a specific flavor like spirituality.
Flavor? It has the flavor that it has, which is absolute non-specificity.
Yeah.
Inclusive non-specificity.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good. At least it's inclusive non-specificity.
Yeah,
You have
at
to
least.
leave out any dragons in the corner or anything, you know.
There's a dragon in the corner, then there you go. Be prepared to be lunch. That can happen.
Okay. Being on the top of the food chain, huh?
Top, bottom, who knows? That's more games. Everything, right?
Yeah.
In a circle. In a circle.
The germs are eating them.
Oh, but think it's like an intellectual process of sorts, in that as a kid I was introduced to myself in no uncertain terms, and what was very clear to me is it had absolutely nothing to do with me. In that I didn't know anything about any spiritual, any kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, it was just, and it lasted for a couple of weeks, and then it started to become more of like memory. I was trying to pursue it through just these spiritual means, and just found myself involved in all this kind of spiritual dogma and like being in certain ways and stuff. And then years later, I ran into a copy of I Am That, the Sargadatta, and it just it gave me insight into what was going on with me. So then I was pursuing all this like Advaita type of stuff.
Right.
And then after a while, I just got sick of it all. I just couldn't listen to any more talk because, you know, and so now more recently, I found myself being introduced deeper into the whole Dzogchen thing. And now I'm listening to you, and you're confirming everything that I knew when I was a kid, confirmed by all these spiritual teachers saying that, you know, I have to act and be like this. This intellectual process that is taking me to a place of being more willing to dispel with all that intellectual process as far as like thinking and analyzing my way to it, and just paying attention to what's, you know, right here.
sense?
It makes
It's like,
sense, but
I know
but
that
you're taking it wrong. What is intellectual process?
well, just understanding,
Okay.
and that
What exactly do you mean by understanding? When understanding happens, what is happening?
well, when real understanding is happening, nothing is really happening.
Yeah.
It's like it's transcended.
Yeah. So how's that an intellectual process?
It's just that somewhere in my mind has gotten to a point after playing with all these things
Right.
through the intellect that, oh, this
Right.
is not.
But the insight, the understanding, is not dependent upon the intellectual engagement, even if it seems to be following with it concurrently.
Right.
But again, my general rule of thumb, it doesn't matter what you do. So you can sit there and think and study and argue and whatever, and it doesn't matter. That's fine. It's the insight that matters. It's the seeing that matters. And that can happen in any context. So if it happens in the context of intellect, that's fine. But it did not happen because of the intellect.
Exactly.
And this is the important point. Revelation and the fact that it's completely independent of process. And can and will occur in any apparent process. Eventually, you discover, as you become more and more sensitive, there's nothing but revelation. As much apparent process as there is, and bang. I mean, the presence of this is absolute transcendental revelation. This is God flashing it right here, right now, literally, and is recognizing it. Not seeing it is also recognizing it, because not seeing is its major mode. And
Say that again, not seeing is what?
Not seeing is the major mode of reality. Reality misses itself.
You mean in our
In our daily
culture,
lives.
daily lives?
No, inherently, metaphysically, transcendentally. God is looking for God and can't find it. But it can't lose it either. So it's kind of this dance, this game of.
I think what I'm.
I mean, it's unimportant. That's sort of poetry, right? But nonetheless, it is true. When one discovers the nature of this, what one discovers is very, could be referred to in those terms, and it doesn't feel like too much of a miss.
I think what I'm trying to say is that I agree and have understood that since I was a kid.
Sure.
He was telling me, contrary to that, bombarded with that.
Sure.
And and then I come along and I'm listening to you very convincingly and resonating with what I know to be true, telling me that, no, it's like, this is it.
Yeah.
But that is somehow, it's an understanding. It's like a rollover.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm.
Sure.
And what I find is that these very deep experiences will happen, or these real subtle sort of things, and I'm so silent and stuff. That's still it's like a little me, they're saying that stuff. And then when something, whatever it is that happens, where I'm just come back onto that knowing, that the transcendent, it's like everything just.
Sure. And that's it. It's everyone knows reality. This is not something new. Everyone is. You are this. You've always been this. You know it intimately. You couldn't know it better. The efficacy of all of this heavy-handed brainwashing that we've all been immersed in, superficially undeniable. It doesn't actually block or take reality away. And everyone knows that too. So in a way, yoga is playing a silly game of yourself of discover that which you already know, and actually discovering that which you already know. And in discovery, one of the most startling things about realization, one of the first happens, a person that becomes realized in that instant is
It's like home.
It is home. It's more fundamental than home. It's just identity. I mean, it's really, there's no big deal to this. It's just a reality check of coming to see what you have always been and have always actually even known that you are. But you were, you've been expertly fucked with by minds and concepts and so on and so forth. You know what? Let's take a 5-minute break just to get up and stretch, use the bathroom, whatever. So come on back here in 5 minutes ish or whatever, and we'll take it from there.